Welcome to Outside View Scandals. Today we're diving into a scandal that rocked the medieval world. The excommunication of King John of England, or as history remembers him, John Lackland. This tale is everything: political intrigue, religious power struggles, and a king who managed to alienate just about everyone he encountered. So sit back and let's unravel the story of how one man's defiance of the Pope spiraled into one of the most dramatic episodes of the 13th century. Let's start with King John himself. Born in 1166 as the youngest son of Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine, John wasn't exactly destined for greatness. His nickname, Lackland, says it all. As the youngest, he didn't stand to inherit much, and his older brothers made sure to overshadow him. Richard the Lionheart, his most famous sibling, left John with some pretty big boots to fill. And spoiler alert, John didn't fill them. When Richard died in 1199, John inherited the throne along with a kingdom that was already grappling with political instability, territorial disputes, and financial woes. Not the easiest start for a king, but John's decisions didn't exactly help his cause. By 1209, John had managed to irritate nearly everyone: his barons, his French rivals, and, most importantly, the church. And that's where our scandal begins. At the heart of the matter was the appointment of the Archbishop of Canterbury, one of the most powerful and influential positions in England. When the incumbent archbishop died in 1205, a power struggle erupted over who should succeed him. Now, you'd think a king and a pope could sort this out amicably, but you would be wrong. The monks at Canterbury Cathedral, the local bishops, and King John all had different ideas about who should get the job. Enter Pope Innocent III, one of the most assertive and politically savvy popes in history. Innocent wasn't just a spiritual leader, he was a master politician who saw the church as the ultimate authority over Christian rulers. When the monks secretly elected their own candidate, John rejected him outright. John then decided to back his own choice, John the Grey, who just so happened to be one of his loyal supporters. The monks, fearing the king's wrath, agreed to support the Grey. But when news reached Pope Innocent III, he wasn't impressed. Innocent had his own candidate in mind, Stephen Langton. Langton was a respected scholar, theologian, and diplomat. But for John, Langton's qualifications were irrelevant. What mattered was that Langton wasn't his choice. From John's perspective, this was a direct challenge to his authority as king. He refused to accept Langton and banned him from entering England. And this wasn't just a minor disagreement, it was a full-blown standoff. In 1207, Pope Innocent III decided to up the ante. He placed England under an interdict. An interdict is like a spiritual lockdown. All religious services, including baptisms, weddings, and burials, were suspended. The sacraments were withheld, plunging the kingdom into spiritual chaos. And for the deeply religious medieval population, this was a big deal. But King John, he wasn't moved. In fact, he saw the interdict as an opportunity. While the church was in turmoil, John confiscated church lands and properties, filling his treasury with their wealth. It was a bold move, but not exactly a way to win friends in high places. By 1209, Pope Innocent III had had enough. He excommunicated John, effectively cutting him off from the church. Excommunication wasn't just a spiritual punishment, it had serious political consequences. It meant that John was no longer recognized as a legitimate Christian ruler. His subjects were no longer bound to obey him, and his enemies were free to see him as a target. But here's the ironic twist. John didn't seem to care. He continued to rule, seemingly unfazed by the Pope's decree. He tightened his grip on England, imposed heavy taxes, and alienated his barons even further. However, cracks were beginning to show. John's excommunication made him vulnerable, especially as tensions with France escalated. King Philip II of France, always eager to expand his territory, used the excommunication as a pretext to invade England. The pressure mounted, and by 1213, John was forced to make a quite humiliating concession. He agreed to accept Stephen Langton as Archbishop of Canterbury and pledged fealty to Pope Innocent III. Yep, you heard that right. King John of England became a vassal of the Pope, agreeing to pay an annual tribute to Rome. It was a complete reversal of his earlier defiance, and while it saved his throne, it didn't save his reputation. John's relationship with barons continued to deteriorate, culminating in the Magna Carta in 1215. We talked about this on my history channel already. But even after the signing of that historic document, John managed to undermine it, plunging England into civil war. And John's reign ended in 1216 when he died of dysentery. It was a fittingly inglorious end for a king whose rule was marked by scandal, failure, and relentless conflict. So, what do we make of the excommunication of John Lackland? Well, first, it's a reminder of how intertwined religion and politics were in the medieval world. The church wasn't just a spiritual institution. It was a political powerhouse capable of challenging even the mightiest kings. Second, it highlights John's remarkable ability to turn every situation into a scandal. Whether it was his disputes with the church, his barons, or his neighbors, John had a knack for creating chaos wherever he went. And finally, it's a lesson in the limits of defiance. John may have stood his ground for a while, but in the end, even he couldn't withstand the combined forces of the church, his barons, and his enemies abroad. And so, thank you for joining me on Outside View Scandals again. And if you enjoyed this dive into medieval drama and intrigue, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And there are plenty more scandals, betrayals, and much more power struggles to explore. So until next time, stay curious and stay skeptical. The next video is right here in the end screen.